All right, time now for After the Beat. Man in the Hat, Colombian Kid, Danny Segura in the house. Segura told us, by the way, at the beginning of the show that we're big in Barcelona. Is that true? That people recognized you from your appearances?
Of course, yeah. I mean, I was in the metro and everyone was asking for pictures.
90-minute lines,
yes.
selfies.
Yeah. I mean, it was difficult.
I didn't know that we were that big in Barcelona.
Yeah, we're huge.
Yeah. That you do the because it's
Barcelona.
It's Catalonia or
Well, no,
Andalus.
all throughout Spain. That's just because Catalan is a different language.
Okay, so is Andalusian? No, am I screwing this up?
I'm not exactly sure, but it's just
which part is the?
That's all throughout Spain. That's just an accent. Say like.
But isn't there like one side that does it and one side that doesn't do it?
No, what it is that, from what I understand, in Barcelona, people speak Catalan. Or Barcelona. People speak Catalan, which is a different language, a different dialect. Very similar to Spanish, but it's still very different. That's what it is. Barcelona is different from the rest of Spain in that regard. But as far as like it's used all throughout Spain. It's kind of like in Argentina, when in Argentina people, for example, say, instead of like saying me, like yo, they say yo.
But everywhere in Spain does the...
I think so. Probably some parts cities more than others. Okay. But overall, if you talk to somebody from Spain, that's usually their characteristics.
Okay, Montreal.
Montreal. See, there you go. There you go. Nice job, Chuck. Okay, let us answer some questions. Here we go. Question number 1. Oh, yes. What are your feelings on Nico Montano's recent statements? So, a lot of you asked me this question, and I was kind of going back and forth as to whether or not I would talk about it because I just didn't feel like it was necessary to get into this whole back and forth. In case you missed it, on Tuesday, I tweeted that the UFC was losing patience with the women's flyweight champion Nico Montano, losing patience because she has not fought since December, and they had offered a fight to both her and Valentina Shevchenko last month to headline the Calgary card on July 28th. And it has been 6 months since she became champion. She had her tonsils and adenoids removed, and I said that they are now looking for other options, one of them being Eddie Alvarez versus Dustin Poirier 2. She took great exception, as did some of her teammates, with this report, and wrote this very intense message on Instagram, to put it mildly.
Say scathing?
Yeah, scathing, yeah. And wrote this whole thing, and it became a little thing. And the only thing that I will say in response, I'll say a couple things. One, I stand by everything that I reported. In fact, after reporting it and her message coming out, people within the company reached out to me to let me know that I was accurate, so there's that. But the most important thing from a journalistic perspective is, if you go back and read the message that she wrote, and you weed through the insults, you'll note that nowhere in her message does she actually refute what I reported. Mm-hmm. The best approach, in my opinion, if I was wrong, was to say, I have not been offered a fight on July 28th. I have not been offered a fight against Valentina Shevchenko. All of this is false. But you'll note that you do not see that anywhere. So to me, it feels like there's a lot of pressure being put on this young woman. She cannot lash out against the UFC, so she's choosing to lash out against me, and she's insinuating that I'm insinuating that she is, quote unquote, afraid of Shevchenko, which I never said.
Right.
I said the UFC is losing patience because they want to book this fight. And then Shevchenko later on that day came out and actually backed up my report and said that she signed the bout agreement. It was unfortunate. I've reached out to her in February. I've reached out to her in March. I reached out to her after that statement to clear the air. And I've also invited her to come on the MMA Hour to clear the air. So I feel like I've done everything that I could. I was disappointed to read some of the things that she wrote. I'm not going to get into a back and forth, but I say once again that everything I reported was accurate. And to me, if any of it was inaccurate, she had a perfect opportunity, as did her teammates, to refute it, and they did not. And the fact that they did not, to me, says it all.
Yeah. Well, you didn't say she was afraid.
I did not.
You did not say she was afraid. Somebody had asked you if it was sort of like the Jermaine Durandame situation. You're like, well, it's reminiscent, but mostly because of the time frame without,
That's what I meant.
Exactly.
And by the way, who are we to say that Jermaine was afraid?
Right.
Jermaine never said afraid, so you're now projecting on her.
Subliminally, she's reading into this, which is a mark of somebody who thinks that she's being accused of stuff like that. Maybe she is from outside corners, but somehow you became the poster boy for
that's right.
the accusation.
How could you not say it's reminiscent? Because here's someone who won a belt, who was sort of thrust into a title situation, and now there is a very dominant challenger waiting for you, and things are moving a little slower. If you've been following the UFC, and if you follow what goes on behind the scenes like I have, you'll know that they are losing patience based on how they've treated other champions who don't want to return in the time frame that they want them to return. So nothing I said was inaccurate. I never called her afraid. I would never say that about a fighter. I would never insult a fighter like that. But I do know that a fight was offered. I do know that one side of that equation has already signed several weeks ago to fight on that date, and now they're moving on, or at least looking for other options. And I think that she's just feeling a lot of pressure from, other,
so
the UFC, Shevchenko's presence, fans on social media, and you can't lash out at those people. I know that. Easy to lash out on.
It's unfortunate for her too, because honestly, I don't know that much about her. The route she came up, through the house on Tough and all that, and then to get where she's at, they're trying to put her into an event, I think, that would be basically more the first big event for her. Basically the real, where they're trotting her out. Okay, so I get it, and there's a tough opponent and all that, but it's just not a good look when this is something that blows up like this. This is something for a lot of people. I'm sure this is the first real knowledge they have of her. It certainly was for me. I don't know her personality that well. I didn't really watch the Tough episodes to get that. So to see that type of response, it's a bad look. It was
baffling to me. And I had her on my show, the week after she won the belt, and I said, I hope the UFC gets behind you. You have a great story. She's come from a very tough background, still was living in a tough situation, and I have the text messages to prove. I reached out to her in February, reached out to her several weeks ago, reached out to her after the report or the statement from her, reached out to her to say, I'd love to have you on the show to clear the air. There's no hard feelings here. Was just trying to report on a situation because I had reported that Shevchenko versus Montano was a fight that they wanted on July 28th. And then there was another report from Brett Okamoto of ESPN saying that they're looking at Alvarez-Poirier. So now I have to see, well, what's going on with this fight? What happened to this original main event? Well, you're moving on because you're losing patience. And by the way, I did look into the tonsil and adenoid surgery. And, from people who I spoke to, because I did ask doctors, typically the recovery there is 10 to 14 days for an adult. And so if this is a fight that was offered a month ago and the fight is in 2.5 months, 10 to 14 days is unfortunate, but it doesn't seem like something that would cause a fight to fall through.
Yeah.
Based on the people I spoke to.
Check your Instagram. And it might be blown up again.
Yes. How fun.
I was just going to say, just out of the fact that, she didn't deny any of your reporting just means that you were doing your job, and that's what we do. We report on things. And
if I never reached out, you can have a beef, but I did.
I think you're dead on. There's a ton of pressure for her situation, I'm sure, right now.
Yep.
She's feeling it, and you were the nearest thing she could lash out against,
All right, let's move on. Hopefully that suffices, and the questions can bite down. Yes, Orange Ape. What is your favorite sports film of all time?
Ooh, God. Slapshot's really good.
Slapshot's a great one.
I love Slapshot. Yeah, Slapshot's one that I've revisited a lot over, but then there's films like Rudy, which I always like. It never fails to be inspirational.
That's my pick. Yeah. That's my pick, Rudy.
I'm a big fan of Remember the Titans.
Remember the Titans?
Yeah.
You millennial.
I thought you were going to say Any Given Sunday.
No.
That's a great one. What was his name? Steeman Willie Beeman?
I don't know.
My name is Willie. Willie Beeman. No? Jamie Foxx.
He doesn't know that.
You didn't see Any Given Sunday?
He's more bend it like Beckham.
Greatest soccer/football movie of all time? Is there even a greatest?
I don't think so.
Original Pele with, what was that? Victory with Sylvester Stallone, the Pele.
I've seen a few soccer movies, and
there's a Sylvester Stallone soccer movie.
1980, maybe 1979. Yeah.
He's a player?
He's a player, yeah.
What? With Pele?
Well, not the real Pele. There's a guy playing Pele.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
I feel like most soccer movies suck. I've seen a few.
I'm surprised that there hasn't been a great soccer movie.
Yeah. I don't know. Also, there's a really good boxing movie, Fighter. The Fighter with Mark Wahlberg and
Rocky and
Rocky, obviously.
Yeah, it's funny. I never put those into sport. I feel like that's combat, but yes, that
would.
What's
the Rocky Marciano one? Raging Bull.
Right.
Raging Bull.
Major League.
Major League is fantastic. Yeah. Yes, Major League is fantastic.
There's so many good ones.
Mr. Baseball.
Really think about it. Yeah.
How about, does White Man Can't Jump fall under sports?
Yeah. Because, I mean, it's...
Yeah, I think it's great. You know, one movie that we've been watching a ton of these days, which actually warms my heart, is Space Jam. My kids love Space Jam.
Space Jam is amazing. How could I forget about that? That's a 90s, that's a 90s kids movie. That's one of my favorite movies.
Your kids like Space Jam?
I don't think they've seen it.
Oh, man.
Dude, you gotta
That's a
pop
good
it
idea.
in. Some great nostalgia in that. Patrick Ewing, his acting in it is phenomenal. All right, those are some picks. Okay, let's move along to our next question. If Jeremy Stephens beats Aldo, should he get the winner of Ortega Max, or does he have to fight Edgar? Or does Edgar get the winner?
Ooh, I would like Edgar to get that fight, given the circumstances of him accepting and staying on that card to fight Ortega. He loses, okay, but he turns around and he comes back and he looks great against Cub Swanson.
Yeah.
I feel like he shouldn't be punished for sticking to his, sticking on that card to that extent. I would still like to see it.
Give him the nod.
Yeah, I'd like to see him the other mulligan, however you want to look at it. But, the Holloway Frankie Edgar fight to me is still massively intriguing, especially if they have full camps and all that stuff. So I still would rather see that route. But I suppose if Stephens goes in there and smokes Jose Aldo, it kind of changes things,
Yeah. I would like to see Frankie Edgar get the shot, just because, again, he was supposed to fight for the title. But I don't think there's anything wrong with having a line of contenders. I think Stephens, if he beats Jose Aldo in a really dominant fashion, just wait it out and, get the next shot.
And he's not going to get a shot right away, but here comes Chad Mendes returning.
It's crazy.
In a month, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like, Frankie did beat him in his last fight, but Mendes is a name.
For sure.
And he got that title shot on 2 weeks' notice, interim shot. So
Sounds like it came, not that you want to be suspended and all that, but it sounds like the silver lining is a break came at the right time for him too.
Yep.
So you got to kind of see if he's kind of remotivated. And
I'm curious.
All that stuff
I'm curious to see how he looks. Okay, let's move along to the next one. What else do we have? What is the update on Jon Jones' USADA suspension hearing? The California one was months ago, and nothing has been said since. So I'll make a quick correction there. There's probably not going to be a hearing. It's just going to be, a news release that comes out, and we'll find out. So that's really, the main update. I think it will happen in the next couple months. I don't think that there is a massive rush for it to happen because, his fight wasn't even a year ago. But if you're sitting around waiting for a hearing, it's probably not going to happen. So there's not going to be any theater to watch. Okay. That's all I wanted to say.
I want to hear your golf voice during it. Oh, well.
Yeah, that would be fun. And, here comes Malky Kawa to the witness stand. All right, let's move on.
I'm wearing pin.
Yeah. Will Bellator survive the upcoming years? A lot of doom and gloom surrounding Bellator these days. Do you think that they are on death's door?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I mean, they haven't had the best ratings, but I mean, I think, for example, the Bellator that just went down, Bellator 198, right?
Yeah.
Great success. Dylan Dennis, they're developing stars. And there are some big fights I think they can make. Obviously, we're still waiting on we were just talking about Fedor versus Chael Sonnen. So I don't think so. I just think they might be going through a rough patch.
Yeah.
I mean, they've made some decisions that, again, there's MMA, there's not pro wrestling. So some things are going to backfire on you. But I think they'll eventually get back on the horse and do well.
The fundamental problem I have with Bellator is that they're owned by a TV channel, and the TV channel is looking for TV content. And I think they're scheduled to have 23 shows this year. I just think that that's too much.
It is too much.
It's too much for the number two. They don't have, so then you get some cards that are a little thin.
And that's been their problem, right? Like the whole way. I feel like some of the events aren't true events. They're just cards that go to,
on a Friday night.
It's very difficult. It's difficult to be number two, to begin with, because you get, like we mentioned earlier, you got to play a different set of rules. You got to play a different game, essentially. I think the only way that they would not be here in a few years is if MMA itself starts to nosedive in ways that we're not seeing. Now, there are times we're certainly, you go through these wanes in enthusiasm. The stars are being developed again. The stars that were there are no longer there. The people who kind of, bring additional spotlight are just not players at the moment. We're just in one of those weird lulls. But is it a lull? That's always what you think. Is it a lull, or are we truly on the wane? You could see some, I was watching yesterday, there was some Twitter thread where, people are basically like, this sport is clearly declining, and anybody who says it's not is denying it. So maybe it is and maybe it isn't, but you never know once new stars come up and some new things come up and there's big fights again. You just don't know how it plays out. But the only way that Bellator is not around in some form, I believe, is if MMA as a whole, and the UFC itself is not doing what it's been doing. You know what I mean? It starts to actually decline. Because then why do you need a number 2 if number 1 can't sustain?
Yeah, I think they need to scale back on the number of shows because if you look at like Strikeforce, even once they did their deal, so there were 2 versions of Strikeforce. There was like the regional Strikeforce, and they had some shows on HDNet, and then there was the Showtime Strikeforce. But they didn't put on this many cards, and certainly not this many big cards. They would have something that was clearly telling you that it's not quite the big show, and that was Strikeforce Challengers. So you could kind of pay attention to it. In the end, they developed an incredible amount of talent, but it wasn't your typical Strikeforce event. Here, it's Bellator 197 and 196 and 198. And again, I'll say one more time, I think it's such a big mistake to have Bellator 200 on tape delay. In 2018 from London, I just think you have to figure out a way, even if it's on your app, everyone is moving in that direction. Yeah. Everything is available. My cable wasn't working a couple of days ago, and I really wanted to watch, I think it was Cavaliers Raptors, and so I find the TNT app. I didn't even know, but I just figured, and lo and behold, I can watch it on my phone. Like, you just have to give people live sports. I mean, the one thing that is doing well these days, with everything struggling in television, live sports doing well. Yeah. Live sports is doing very well. And so the fact that they're an event like 199, 198, 146, none of these numbers mean anything, but 200 meant something.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
It's so frustrating.
Just a 200 name alone just gives promotion.
That's a draw on its own right now. Anyway. All right, let's move along. But to answer the question, I think they're fine for now.
Yeah.
Okay. This individual, I appreciate where he started, but he took a weird route to get to his question. Anyway, watching Donovan Mitchell in the playoffs, of course, our Utah Jazz's own Donovan Mitchell, 1-1, yeah, baby, going back to Utah, it's great. Anyway, feels very reminiscent of Conor McGregor when he beat Marcus Brimage, to me at least. I feel like I'm watching a legend in the making. Okay, so I get that. It feels like he was pandering at the top there, you know? Mm-hmm. Anyway, my question is, with all the greats out there in all aspects of sports, who was your favorite to watch and why?
Whoa. Maybe he was just using the Donovan Mitchell.
See, if I'm an editor, that
yes, and it 100% worked. Yeah. So I was like, oh, question about the Jazz? And then we got to that, which I don't know how we got to that.
It worked.
Well, I will say that Donovan Mitchell has been a joy to watch and develop over this. And it's crazy to see him come up in big spots.
Amazing.
I don't know his age, but I mean, like, he's so young, and he's just, he's playing. It's great.
A real rookie, not like that fake rookie in Philadelphia.
Yeah, exactly right. But so I kind of understand what he's saying there.
Okay.
But at the same time,
is he talking about like who's our favorite athlete of all time, or who is the athlete that we enjoy watching their progression?
I think he's talking about any athlete that was great that you enjoyed watching.
Just watching the whole body of work.
I mean, for me, John Elway would be the guy, right? Like,
did you watch him from rookie?
Yes.
You did?
Basically, yeah.
Okay, wow.
Basically the whole time. So that would be the obvious choice for me. Like, you saw him come in and Magic Games, you know what I mean? Like, from the mid 80s and things like that. So for that would be my guy.
Yeah. I would say, I'm a big soccer guy, so probably watching Ronaldinho.
And did you watch him from beginning to end?
Well, I think he's still playing like in the Mexican league.
Is he?
He's super old. Yeah.
Wow.
And he's like 5.
Yeah.
He's
got to be older.
He's definitely older than that. Yeah. He's probably close to 40, if not there. But when he was playing like Barcelona and just like the things that he was doing, and the thing is he's still doing today, like, very few people are doing. He's just so creative with the ball. It almost feels like, or it felt like watching. There's sometimes like these guys that go on the street and just do like street soccer, and they're kind of just doing tricks with the ball, not really playing soccer. That's what it felt like, and he actually made it work. And I would also like to throw in there Andrea Pirlo, who actually played for
NYCFC. Yeah.
That man has the best touch in soccer. I mean, he never even ripped the ball. It was just like the slight touches that would just sort of fall, and he could pinpoint anywhere in the field and get the ball there. the best touch in soccer.
So I feel like there's a lot of people I could choose from, like, you know, a guy like Allen Iverson or Vince Carter.
You love the Georgetown guys.
Yeah, well, of course. But you see, because I wasn't around when Ewing entered the league, that would obviously be my favorite athlete.
I do remember watching him in college with the sleeves.
Come on.
I do, yeah, 100%.
How old are you? Sheesh.
17.
Wow. Do you remember watching the 85
Yeah.
NCAA finals against Villanova?
Yes.
The big upset.
Yeah, I watched it, yeah.
How old were you? 85? Can I ask, is that rude?
No, that's not rude. Let's see. So 85, I was what, 11, 12 years old?
Wow, okay, so I remember things at 12.
Yeah.
Fascinating. I'll go back to my guy Vladimir Guerrero because he came in as a phenom, and then just watching him, no batting gloves, hitting everything, balls that were bouncing in front of the plate, and he was knocking them out, and now getting to see his son, which is, you know, surreal, play for the Blue Jays. I'll pick Vladimir Guerrero as a kind of phenom that you were excited about his entrance, and then watching him develop into a Hall of Famer now. So
another one is Tim Raines.
Tim Raines.
I saw him play in minor leagues.
And then, what was that, like 78, 77?
No, it was like 80.
No, he was already in the big leagues in the 80s.
Well, I know I saw him play, let's put it that way. I was a kid, a very little kid, but I did see him play.
For the Denver Bears.
Yeah, Denver Bears.
At Mile High?
At the old Mile High.
Wow.
It's like 3,000 people sitting in a 75,000.
Here we thought that we were losing, you know, some of our age with Jeff leaving, but
I'm trying to catch up quick, man.
yeah, you've replaced it very well. Okay, let's move along to our next question. Just a few more left. Ahoy. This was a fascinating question. When and where were you happiest?
Whoa.
It's like, this is super deep. I was like, this is a very simple yet incredible question to ponder.
That's a hard question.
When and where were you happiest?
There's so much to consider there. I don't know. I don't even know how to answer that because you have kids, like you have a baby. There's nothing quite like
moments,
that.
Yeah. It's a tough one.
Yeah. In childhood, you're the kid, so it's like that's fun. I don't know. I mean, there's just too many.
Yeah. Well, I'm not married and I don't have any kids.
So you're happiest right now.
So I would say I'm pretty happy right now. Yeah. But also, like, I guess when you're a kid, like, you're just so unaware of, like, so many things that you like about life, and you're just like, I don't know, you're just so innocent and so.
What about when the Broncos won the Super Bowl for the first time?
That was very nice.
Yeah?
Very nice.
How did you celebrate?
Crying.
Did you actually
vomiting.
tear up?
No, I'm just kidding.
Did you vomit? that was from something else, though.
No, I actually did tear up about that one because, you know, you have to understand, I watched him get blown out of Super Bowl after Super Bowl. They were like the Buffalo Bills before the Buffalo Bills. Before the Buffalo Bills. So the Buffalo actually came and took away the Denver Broncos stigma. So as soon as they actually won it and John Elway was the quarterback, yes, that was a big moment.
Did you actually cry?
Yeah.
Wow. Where were you?
I was living in California at the time, so there was a buddy who had like a big Super Bowl party and all that stuff. I didn't do it there. It was like when I was going home and I was reflecting on it all.
Wow. And you wanted to watch a game of that magnitude with other people?
I look at that now and I'm like, I would never do that.
Yeah.
Never.
No.
But then I guess, you know.
How many people?
There was, it wasn't huge, but it was maybe 30. There was 25 people.
You can't hear the
But there were a lot of
broadcast.
people, and a lot of them were not Bronco fans, you know. So it was a very, it wasn't the greatest atmosphere for it, but at the same time, I was invested. So
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, when my kids were born, it's hard to replace that.
The Kimbo Montano.
The block?
Yep. When he got that rebound and the number 8 Denver Nuggets beat the Super
holding the ball.
Yes.
Against the Sonics.
Euphoric.
Great Sonics. I mean, but so if we put aside the obvious, the kids, I mean, when Allen Houston hit the shot against Miami in 1999, when that team made it to the finals, one that I remember vividly was when Patrick Ewing dunked in the 1994 Eastern Conference Finals against Indiana to make it to the finals for the first time. I mean, those were pretty special moments. But it feels very, I mean, to compare that to being a dad.
When the Montreal Expos were still.
Yeah, well, when they come back, we'll probably be one of the happier moments. We will all be there crying, holding each other, singing Valderi, Valdera. It's going to be great. What a great question, huh?
Loopy.
I'm not sure we really answered the question, to be honest.
Well, that was a fairly broad question there.
Yeah.
I was very happy when I graduated Syracuse because that meant I could leave that place once and for all.
Yeah.
If you were talking about a where. Okay,
and you got to go back under different circumstances.
I did. Thank you. Okay, let's move along to our next one. Is Cejudo versus Johnson 2 bout any closer to being finalized? So that is the fight that they want. I'm told that August 4th is a possibility, but it is not finalized. So there you have it.
Okay.
Okay, let's move along to our next one. How big would the social media hype be for Baby Slice versus Jon Gotti III?
Social media hype.
You think this is a fight that Bellator should? Is Jon? Okay, let's take it one step further. Jon Gotti III, grandson of the infamous John Gotti, the Dapper Don, the Teflon Don. Have you heard of Jon Gotti?
I have through MMA now that
through MMA,
but I didn't
one of the
know
most
who he was
infamous
before.
mobsters in the history of this country. Anyway, his son, Jon Gotti's son, Jon Jr., also infamous, went to jail, and now his son, so the grandson of the Teflon Don, is an MMA fighter, 1-0, and competes tomorrow for a CES, trying to go 2-0. Is this the kind of fighter? Is this the kind of name that Bellator? You know, they try to go for these guys, right? They like the
name association.
Yeah.
Sons. I don't know. I don't.
Or is he a New York kind of name that doesn't really mean much to the rest of the world, or at least the country?
Yeah, I don't know how much his grandfather's popularity will boost his MMA career and hype.
I don't know if popularity is the right word,
you know,
but yes, there's a movie coming out though in June where John Travolta is playing.
John Travolta.
John Travolta is playing Gotti Sr. Yeah.
Weird.
Kevin Conley is the director.
I'm not sure that it really works this way though. Like you know,
don't think?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think that.
I mean, even
Kids, like the kids of stars, translates like people think they will. In the fight game, maybe, and especially a guy who's the grandson of the. Okay, that carries a little different sheen. Baby Slice, though, I don't really feel like has been like this massive intrigue.
Yeah, same.
But Gotti a bigger name than Kimbo, right? In the world
For
of
sure.
pop culture.
Yes.
So
It'd be interesting to see. I would wait and see though first how he's going to be
put
received.
him on like an MSG card. Can you imagine that?
I think they're also still very young in their.
No, of course, but I mean, Bellator they're signing Dylan Dennis 0-0, and other guys like that. So it's not like they're above that.
But to answer your question, I don't think much hype.
No, all right.
It's hard for kids of like of something like that or grandkids like. Del Curry was a big star, but who's his kid?
Yeah.
The one example where it's,
By the way, I highly recommend a documentary on Netflix that just came out called The Carter Effect. And it's actually directed by the guy, his name is Sean Menard, who directed Fight Mom, about Michelle Watterson. And this is about Vince Carter's effect on basketball in Canada in the early days of the Raptors. And there's tremendous footage of Del Curry and Steph Curry when he was on the Raptors as like a 10-year-old playing.
Weird.
Yeah, it's just amazing. So you reminded me.
out.
So check out The Carter Effect on Netflix if you're interested in that. Okay, let's move along. Just a couple left. The UFC is often accused of not promoting fighters enough, especially young talent. In each of the panelists' opinion, what would you consider to be good promotion of an up-and-coming fighter? Is it booking media appearance, ads, interviews? So I thought that this was an interesting question because I don't think that there's an actual formula. I just think you need to be creative when it comes to it. It's not just about saying like, oh, we booked him in 10 different interviews. It doesn't work that way. It's about, the right kind of fights, the right kind of scenarios, the right kind of venues, the right kind of cities. There's a lot. It's a formula, but it's not the exact same formula for each guy, in my opinion.
Right.
It's not a cookie cutter equation.
Yeah, I think there are some things that fall, I guess, in general of promoting, like bringing them out to events, showing them on camera, having them do media. There's certain things that are just standard. But I think to take it up a notch, to make it even better, you will probably, it comes down to tailoring. For example, Sean O'Malley. They're taking out the T-shirt, the tie-dye T-shirt, 420, and that's personalized to him.
Yep,
you
that's
can't
smart.
take out a tie-dye T-shirt and release it on 420 for anybody, for Sage Northcutt, for anybody. No, that's tailored to him. Having Stipe fight in Cleveland, for example, take Demetrius Johnson, take him to an E3 convention. He with his Twitch channel, with his whole, video game, I guess, knowledge and him just being involved in that world. So I guess the answer is tailoring and finding the right type of audiences that connect to those fighters and doing it successfully. I guess.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a formula either. I think that just knowing the personality of the fighters and operating on that level to an extent, like what kind of character, what do they think they can make of them, and just kind of playing to their strengths more so. But at the same time, the UFC has done a great job of making people who are just not charismatic and stuff like that compelling. They've done a good job of, people who are charismatic, putting them in big situations where they know they'll thrive. I feel like they've done a pretty good job of that, but it's very difficult to maintain that size of a roster with that many events and to make guys stand out. That's really the problem. I think it's harder and harder with that many people to say, like, pay attention to this guy. The people themselves, the people coming up have to have some kind of it factor. They have to call people out on the mic. They have to do they have to play the game, you know, to an extent. And they do their own promotion. And UFC, I think,
you're 100%
piggyback
right
on that.
That's the real answer here.
Yeah.
It's more on, whether anyone wants to admit it or not, it's more on the fighter to do the dirty work. And it shouldn't be this way. Like in boxing, you have a promoter who kind of works in concert with you, and he's going out there pounding the pavement on your behalf. But because the UFC is in business with so many fighters, they can't side with certain guys because it just looks awkward. So you, like O'Malley did all that work, right?
For sure.
Conor did all the work early on, and then you kind of take the baton.
Right.
And so you see the real stars out there, the majority of them are the ones who did the work themselves.
100%.
Who go out there and do the work themselves. So really, that's the answer. Like you want to be over with the audience, you want to be popular and everything. You got to do the work.
Yeah.
And you have to figure out how to connect with the right kind of people. So it's not just, hey, let me sit back and wait for the UFC, because it'll never happen if you do that. All right, one more to go. What is it? A very important question. Haven't heard this one before. This is your weekly check-in. Do you think Nick Diaz will return this year?
No.
Jake Shields was on the MMA Hour on Monday, and he said that he does believe Nick Diaz will fight again. This year is, you know.
If it was return again, yes, but I don't see it this year. I mean, he can though, right? Like he's cleared. At this point, he's completely cleared. I know he keeps in shape. I guess it's not out of the question. It is actually a little bit more. There's some clarity to his situation that wasn't there before. So maybe I shouldn't be so quick to be like, no way, not this year. But I would be a little surprised if he fights this year.
It'll never happen. But could you imagine Nick and Nate on the same card in Los Angeles in August? I mean, what a scene.
What do you know?
No, that one's totally, you know.
Yeah,
that would be amazing.
I think it's possible, just because you never know with Nick. Like, he could just be like, I want to fight, and, you know, good opportunity can come in, and we know, like, the UFCs and stars, and we know Nick Diaz just from this question alone, all the questions we get.
Every week. Literally, that's the only reason I picked this question. It's every single week I get a question,
I love when you put out your roster. It could be stacked 14 deep.
Where's
the stars, people doing it, like the first thing. One time I did that. I had to rub it in once.
I was going to block you for doing that.
So yeah, I feel like it could be at any time, but if I had to put a bet, I think if he does come back, it'll probably be sometime like early, mid next year.
Yeah. I just want him to come back so we don't get the question anymore.
Yeah.
You know, honestly. That's it. But all right. We'll leave it at that.
I feel like people are...
It does feel like, especially with everything that happened,
I wonder if free Nick Diaz.
I wonder if part of it is that, like, people felt like they fought.
They want to see him
for his freedom, and then they want to see a payoff.
And also, I feel like, you know, he fought like before Nate Diaz became the superstar that he is today.
True.
And I feel like him, you know, fighting again, and yeah, it would be nice to sort of.
I also think
because I feel
he
like
doesn't
just
do any
the
media.
Diaz brand, not just Nate Diaz, but even Nick was elevated just from
100%.
that.
But he doesn't, like, there's no closure even in terms of him doing interviews and media and saying, I don't really want to do this. So it's just a question that's lingering.
Yeah, the unknown.
The unknown. Something tells me we'll get that question again in the next 7 days.
Next
week? Yeah. So stay tuned for that. For now, we shall say goodbye. We are out of time. Thank you very much to everyone who watched once again this week. So it's a bit of a quiet weekend in the world of MMA as far as the UFCs and Bellators of the world, but there's tons of, you know, there's LFA and all the other promotions out there. Ian McCall against Kyoji Hiraguchi. That's a great one as well. So there's a lot going on as always. We'll be back next week to talk about it all. For now, again, thank you very much for watching. Goodbye to all of you. For the crew, for Danny, for Chuck, I am Ariel. Enjoy your weekend and enjoy the fights.